Welcome to another episode of Risk Takers and Trailblazers, Women in Insurance, where we explore the inspiring journeys, challenges, and successes of women shaping the insurance and insurtech industries. I'm Diane, and today I am joined by my amazing co-host, Jen. Unfortunately, Helen and Tanya couldn't be with us today, but we miss them. Today, we are thrilled to have an exceptional guest with us, Meredith Barnes-Cook, partner at Resource Pro. Meredith has spent decades helping insurers navigate the complexities of the ever-evolving digital landscape, with a focus on carrier advisory services, change management, and innovative leadership. In this episode, we'll be diving into a critical issue of advocacy for women in insurtech. We'll explore the challenges and opportunities that women face in leadership and tech roles, and the importance of events like Alta World Women in Insurtech Conference, which I can't wait to hear more about. So join us today as Meredith shares her expert insights on closing the gender gap, the power of mentorship, which we talk a lot about on this podcast, and her vision for the future of women in insurance and tech. So welcome, Meredith.
Thank you so much. Thrilled to be here.
We're so happy to have you here. So I guess let's just start by you giving us a bit of intro on you, what you do in your current role, and how you got there.
Sure. So again, Meredith Barnes-Cook, a partner at Resource Pro. I've been in the insurance industry for now, please don't do the math on what this means, for 40 years. I'm one of the few people that raises their hand when someone says nobody chose insurance as a career. I'm like, oh, I did, because I did. I started off working at a retail agency when I was in college, and just kind of got the right brain, left brain, just loved the different dimensions of the problem solving, the analysis. Every scenario is unique, but it's all driven towards helping people. And many decades later, I still feel that way. So by design, I started off at an insurance company at Liberty Mutual right after I left college, started off in claims. And as a spirit of being someone who I think, just always loves to continue learning, and I'm good at extrapolating kind of what I learn into the next thing. I guess my brand within Liberty Mutual quickly became, I'm the person who's really great at doing things I've never done before. And even better if either it doesn't yet exist or it does and it's about to go off the cliff. So as a byproduct of really loving to tackle the things that were completely undefined or in trouble, 33 years later, I had the opportunity to work across the entire insurance life cycle, all lines of business, starting in service, moving into operations and the business side of technology. And the technology was not only the big stuff, the big new programs, what are we going to build, how many years will it take, et cetera, but in parallel, always had responsibility for the day-to-day lights on. So, it always kept me humble on what's really most important is, that people can do their jobs every day when they come in. Respectfully, secondarily is the new bright, shiny object that we're working towards to deliver in a few more years, be it a new claim system, a policy system, or the like. And then after leaving Liberty in 2019, in the spirit of, again, doing something completely different and testing my limits or finding new ones, I went to an AI startup as their go-to-market strategist. So I went from a company 55,000 to 60, and went into not only help coach the organization on the insurance industry, which is their first chosen vertical, but they didn't have any insurance people in the company yet. So I was doing kind of the inside out guidance, education, product, use cases, marketing, but also the outside in of, working with prospects, helping grow clients, lots of times speaking, writing, all those types of things, and kind of I really loved that, sitting on the other side of the table, having been the buyer in the past, now being the seller and trying to connect the dots in an authentic way. And then about a year ago, July, I had the opportunity to join Resource Pro, and I'm part of the organization that was formerly known as Strategy Meets Action, which was a woman-founded in property and casualty insurance strategy and research advisory firm that Resource Pro acquired a few years ago. And so now I'm in the midst of, I work with carriers as well as insurtechs and some of the more tenured technology providers in the industry on kind of their future state, and kind of where are they trying to get to, understand the competitive landscape, and then along the way doing a lot of research as well. We do a lot of research that our clients use and help us stay attuned to what's going on out there.
Yes. Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. I think that is where I think the previous company and what it was strategy and action. Is that what it was?
The strategy meets action was the precursor to where I am. The Resource Pro acquired them a few years ago.
We know each other. Yeah, that's how I think.
Oh.
I'm sure it is, because I'm pretty sure we talked several years ago in maybe a combination of helping a customer, or maybe to do with their data. Anyways, that's where I think I think.
Okay. Okay. That's, I always say to people about insurance, it's a big industry in a really small community.
Oh yeah.
And I'll be at ITC next week, and it'll be a rounds of, oh, where are you now?
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Because if you I feel like if it speaks to your soul, not to sound on that physical about it, but if insurance speaks to you and something core in you, you never have to leave it.
No,
which is a huge problem, that the insurance industry has done a horrible job about its own brand, to attract and grow talent, including women, because respectfully, we're all about, cute fuzzy critters and that type of thing. And we're kind of missing the memo of why insurance really exists, except for a few carriers that are doing some nice advertising now, kind of more to the heart of the whole point of it. But also saying, I always guided people who were thinking about coming into the industry. I said, don't worry about where you start, because wherever you start, look at me. There is no shortage of places where you can navigate. Just keep your eyes wide open.
Yes. Yeah. I almost had the most identical conversation to a younger person coming into the industry a couple months ago. I said, this is exactly the mindset, and you will just keep raising your hand, keep being, curious and interested, and you'll have a lifelong career, and it'll be fun. And you'll meet some really, really good people. It was coming off of Amplify. I was even talking to my own team, and they said, wow, how long have you guys known each other? And I said, well, and we're just talking about our group, right? And I said, well, some of these women and men I've known since I was 19 or 20, right? And so it really does feel like your broader work family, and yes, we're some of us are remote. It really does feel like there's this big network behind you, and I think it's just getting stronger and stronger every day, particularly with, even the female group, but it's all of us together. And that is actually a very supportive environment to grow a career. So I think if we can keep building that, it's very positive.
Yeah. I agree. And continuing to share our stories, because when each of us share our stories of where we started, where we've been, and what we're doing now, and and I always say, and I'm not done yet. Where next? I don't know. I've learned that this is an industry that has so many options that I try not to get too focused on just one point ahead, as opposed to maybe it's this, but maybe it's something else I don't even know about yet, because that's actually been my journey thus far. Most of the roles I held were roles that didn't previously exist until I went into them.
Yes.
And I'm all the better for it, and all the more challenged, and I've grown from it. So I just tell you, keep your peripheral vision wide open. And I had an opportunity to write an article at the beginning of the year, and I kind of had my reflection on my lessons learned. I said, surround yourself with people who see you as you really are, not the reflection that your own unconscious bias sees of yourself in the mirror, because we all filter. And when somebody you trust says, I think you should explore this, come at it with a why not.
Yeah.
Don't do why, say why not. What's the worst thing that could happen? If you trust this person, you believe they know you, you have to say, why would I not take that shot?
Yeah.
Well,
even if it's not a shot I thought I had a shot at.
Look at the example of the three of us just right now on the call. We are all not selling policies on a day-to-day basis. We're in the insurance realm, but we've got marketing, tech, completely different than just the day-to-day. We've taken it different ways. There's never ending to do with.
And I think something you said, it was really kind of stands out to me. And I think it goes back to that, deep community aspect. And it's hard because I've never been immersed into another industry. So I don't know if it's as tight knit or supportive, but something you said was really interesting about, if you trust this person, why not say that, why not take that chance? Why not take that, to say that yes? And I think that that is something that I've personally found within this industry throughout my whole life and my whole career, which was pretty much my whole life, is exactly that. It's like, that's the community that I'm talking about, is that how special, you get to work with people who know you, get to know you, you trust, right?
Yep.
And so I think it's a very supportive environment.
Yeah. And it's a great place where you get to pay it back, because when you have someone do it for you, and then you say thing, I mean, I think probably all of us on this call, we find ourselves, something will come up and we'll just reach out to someone else and say, this is a really interesting opportunity. Is this something you've ever thought of? Because I saw it and immediately thought of you.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
how we formed our podcast. It was just like, oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned, Meredith, that you were one of the few that chose to come into insurance. Like, everyone does say they fell in, but you're talking to, so Jen and I both were born into insurance. So it's the all we know from the beginning. Yeah.
Yep. But, as we say it, and when I was at Usher, I was at the AI startup, and a young lady that was part of the marketing team. And I remember she's great, and we were getting to know each other. And she just made this observation. She goes, I can't imagine having the same job for 33 years. I was like, up, hold on. No, same company.
Yeah.
But, I assure you, the company that I started at looked nothing like the company I left. And I worked in 12 different locations and held about as many different roles during that time. So, kind of be thoughtful of, no, I couldn't necessarily envision doing the same thing for 33 years. That being said, I don't know, again, insurance is the only industry I know as well. I can't envision an industry like insurance that aspires to anticipate and be ready for what's happening next in the world, but at a minimum has to be able to respond really quickly when it transpires. Insurance, it just looks nothing like 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Oh.
It's continuously evolving. So I think there's also kind of that what is insurance? And I just firmly believe, and there's a gentleman, Curtis Goldsboro, who is the president of National Insurance Inspection Services, and he has his alter ego loss ratio.
Yeah.
And gosh, his production talent just blows my mind. And his ability, he just did this Insurtech, his annual kickoff song, and just, but he and I share, amongst many others, this whole passion of the insurance industry is not doing a great job on its own behalf of telling its story. It's just, we kind of sit in a corner and hide, or we treat insurance like it's something funny. And I'm one of the overinsured because I just can't have enough of it. But I don't laugh when I pay my premium every month. Let's be clear about that. But I have the inside advantage understanding why I need to have it and why it's important, so that financial hit is slightly less painful. But there's nothing I think is humorous about it. And I don't think we take it as seriously as an industry in general as we could.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it's because we're viewed, when you talk to somebody who's maybe graduating or at that age, it's like, oh, would you think about insurance? And it's almost like they hear used car salesman.
Yeah, you're right.
Like a really shady.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so much you can do in insurance, but you're right, we do not highlight the greatness of it.
Yeah. And it's
a noble industry.
Yeah, it is. And the importance of it. I remember being a really young kid, and I would always would walk around saying, what if, whatever the scenario, what if, we're baking these cookies and the house burns down or whatever. And I remember my aunt saying to me, why are you always like, what thing? It's like, do you have some sort of an obsession with risk?
You're a risk manager. You're a risk manager.
It was really strange. And I don't know if there was any ever correlation, but I do remember when I was on the broker side, taking that level very seriously. I always wanted to make sure that people understood really, like, line item by line item, what it all meant. And I don't know, but I agree. It's something in there that it's not held as important as it should be. And I think it's always been critical, but it's more critical now than ever.
Yeah, I had an opportunity, the University of Connecticut, in their graduate school, I think they created the first FinTech / InsurTech master's program. And they have part of a Hartford Innovation Week. They do an Insurtech Discovery Summit, and I've been blessed. This is the second year I've been invited to participate in it. And so this, one of the kind of the parting thoughts was, what do you tell these bright, sparkly class of young people looking at you? And I said, as they're saying, as they go forth into the world with their graduate degrees, and they're all, really super smart, super analytical, great people. And I said, I want you to understand the why. I want you to understand what you're part of as you're maybe, focusing on data science, again, they're all kind of the InsurTech oriented. You're focusing on all that. Don't ever not understand the problem you're solving and why it matters, because that's what's going to get you up in the morning on those days when you don't want to. Yeah. Or at least make it a little easier to have an extra cup of coffee, is just really understanding that bigger picture, that bigger lens of, the larger, what happens if you don't do this, or how can this propel a current situation to make it be less difficult, less complicated, less slow. Notice I didn't say simple or fast, because insurance can be incredibly complex, and I don't think a contract is ever simple. Can it be less complicated? Absolutely, but insurance will still be complex in some way, shape, or form.
It's true nature, yeah. Well, why don't we dig into, you sent me some really interesting statistics that you had posted on LinkedIn. And just, we had already kind of chatted before we were recording about like the what is it, 50 years, and they are estimating until
parity is achieved. Yep. McKinsey and Lean In just did their 10th annual Women in the Workforce. Yeah. So the broader cross workforce research, they just released the report within the past 2 weeks. And one of the statistics they said is, on the one hand, on its surface, we think we're doing better, for example, but respectfully, when you look at the increases in some of, say, like the C-suite elevations, they're still narrow in terms of their scope. They are going to tend to be more on, say, the talent and, HR and the marketing side, for example, is a challenge. So that's a piece of it. Okay, we're making progress, but, and they said it'll be 50, at the current pace, it'll be 50 years before we'll have gender parity. And of course, everything I say about women is significantly worse once you add in race as someone of color. Once you add that to the mix, you're double, quadrupling the obstacles.
Which is crazy. And then when you think about, the insurance industry, specifically, it's primarily, the statistic is about 60% of the industry is female, but most of those are held in the customer service type roles, or the account management. And then once you get into the C-suite, and once you're in the executive level, that drops significantly by half.
Yeah. And I think we've seen years ago, many great organizations really leaned in and invested in these, C-suite diversity leadership roles and all that, and took it very seriously. But now what I perceive we're seeing is, unintentionally, as some of those roles are winding out, do we think we're done? As opposed to the fact that we're having the conversation, it's going to be a long conversation, because to your point, when you say about 60% of our industry is women, but that represents just under 34% of those are executives. So again, back to the McKinsey broken rung. We talk about the glass ceiling, and I love that McKinsey concept, because it's not the glass ceiling. It's not the executive, because where do executives come from? They come from your mid to senior management layer. That's where the break happens. And insurance looks like that as well, unfortunately.
Well, and we've touched on this in the podcast as well, is that to me, it's such, and it's not my thought alone, but it's exciting, because it's exciting in a sense, because those roles, like you say, the 60% of women that are in the account manager, the CSR, let's call it what it is, the caretaking, take care of everything role. That's what the role is, right? So you put that up on a higher level, and the power of that, and the positivity of leadership in those roles, I think, is going to be phenomenal. right?
Yes.
And it's not taking away from anything, any other, you know, men in those roles. It's just that they've never really been in the take care of everything role, in the account manager role for 35 years. And all of that comes with that, right? And so I think it's going to be very interesting and exciting, and to see what women can do in that level. So,
and there's so many great allies out there, because that's really what it takes. Is, you know, we talk about other things, like that's really key in all this is, you know, we need the allies. We need the men who have historically had the courage to pursue an opportunity when they met 20 or 30% of the qualifications, and a woman stereotypically generally won't throw their hat in the ring unless they match everything. You know, that's where, for me, my first, you know, kind of my first management role, I tried to withdraw my application because I was a workers' compensation claims adjuster, and I didn't know it when I applied that it was a property, auto, and liability claims manager role. And so the day the division hiring manager came in to visit my office, I pulled him aside and said, "I'm so sorry, I need to retract my application." He's like, "I'm here to offer you the job."
Oh.
And I was like, "But I don't know anything." And I still remember he said, "You'll figure it out."
Yeah.
And so that was just that one statement many years later has stuck with me. You know, that he saw in me something I didn't yet see yet. I was, 2 years in or so in the organization out of college, and he saw something, and he just wouldn't take no as an answer. Yeah. He's like, "No, you're going to go do this." Yeah. And I think that's when I got to that. Well, why not? Do I trust that he's putting himself on the line to put me into this role? So if he thinks I can do it, why do I think I can't?
Yeah. Why are you limiting yourself?
Yep. Absolutely. And you see that with startup founders. You know, I several, amazing pioneers, and then there's, pioneers of all shapes and sizes, the women, but they do talk about, and the data's out there, of how much harder it is to fundraise when you're a woman founder.
Yes.
The numbers are startlingly, and yet the data also shows women-led organizations do really well. Yeah. So it's just this interesting, I hope my 25-year-old son, I hope, in the next 10 to 20 years, I'm hoping his experience, he will see things differently. He will experience things differently in the professional world, I hope.
And I hope that supportive nature that is brought, part of support is being vulnerable first, right? Mm-hmm. So that kind of what you were talking about in terms of having that support from that leader, I think what comes first, vulnerability and then support, and so I feel like this more people talking about all of this is going to help everybody. It's not just going to be isolated, because think about when we talk about men going for positions that they were 25% qualified for, they're still going. I mean, I've been there, right? And they're still going through the same things that we went through. But are they voicing it? Did they voice it? It's just blazing through, right? So I think there's a whole thing in there as well. And I think for leaders coming up in general, it's going to be an interesting environment, positive environment compared to previous generations, I think.
Yeah, I hope so.
I was just going to add in, we have a little blip though of COVID, where, who stayed home, the females in the workforce declined quite significantly because somebody had to stay home when the world shut down. So look at the numbers of people that exited during those years, and now they have to either start all over again or pick up where they left off, but they're a few years behind.
And I think about my husband. We've been married for 35 years now. He was really ahead of his time. He was the primary parent. He stepped off the professional treadmill for when we had our son, and that we decided to figure that all up front. And it was, economics, benefits, and those types of things driven. But he took that rein off. And so he gave me the flexibility and the options that I might not have otherwise had in the more kind of historical traditional setting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. But he faced, a lot of like that, what? what do you mean you're home with your child?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, he faced a lot of that, you know, generationally, just kind of that sideways glances.
Yeah.
And I think now with, although remote work has kind of swung back a bit, even to like hybrid, I feel like, and I don't know the statistics, but I feel like some of those dynamics have shifted because all of a sudden, even in a two-parent household, everybody was home. And so that distribution of the work, especially if your children were home, and kind of managing homeschooling, which I was so grateful my son was in college by the time that occurred, because I think I would have lost my mind. I just heard how hard that was, so incredibly hard. But I think that took a village in a household, to be sure.
I had a 3-month-old when they said schools are closed. And I remember saying to my husband, I'm like, go to the liquor store and get me some wine. I'm going to need it. And everyone's going to be flooding it.
Wow.
My daughter was in was she in kindergarten or grade 1? I can't even remember, but like, yum.
It's
So,
wild.
Wow.
Virtual school was horrible. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the work dynamics, of course, initially got a little crazy because that was a global crisis, but individually, everybody was suddenly scared because, and that's when we learned about the concept of proximity bias. Because, so we had this world of bad behavior, everybody trying to reinforce their value by being online 24/7. And needing to be a top-down thing of everybody stop. First, like stop sending emails at 10 o'clock at night because you're home and you got nothing better else to do. Because now what you're telling your teams is they need to be catching that email at 10:15 and answering you by 11. Well, that's not what I intend. Well, you're filling their email box. It's a neat little feature called delayed send. Send it tomorrow morning. Don't put things on Slack or Teams or whatever because you have a random question or thought, because now everybody's pouncing on, can I be the first one to answer to prove that I'm valuable?
Yeah. So bad, so terrible.
Oh, horrible.
And having to like unwind that is really rough. And I think that's where and I always go back to the supportive community aspect of everything. But really you now put us all in that environment and you almost remove the community aspect because no one's with each other, right?
Yep.
And it's just this, I feel like that's lifting. I feel like, even certainly at Goose, we've put in layers where it's like, you are not obligated to respond to this, shut this down type thing, so that you feel, or just don't even do it altogether, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's a challenge.
I have a question. So if we shift the gears a bit and I don't mean to steal your outline, Diane, but for women in Insurtech, like where do you let's talk about that for a second. What are the things you've been seeing in the last, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years, maybe, just women in leadership positions in digital transformation and Insurtech? Because I think that's super fascinating for a couple really unique reasons, but I'd love to hear what you're seeing in that realm.
Yeah, and I haven't studied the data, but my observation from the growing community I'm part of is more and more women are leaning in and jumping in to try to make something great happen. Of course, hitting some of those obstacles, those rungs, those ceilings, but I'm seeing more and more of it because they're the innate problem solvers. They've been the caretakers, and I think the other piece that's happening in our industry is, and I hope it sticks, we think about technology of moving away from, and some of my colleagues might get annoyed with me as I say, like, no, insurance is sexy. I mean, I don't know if I think insurance is sexy. I think insurance is critical, important, noble, and a whole variety of other things. So my friends are going to get mad at me when they watch this and they'll be like, but insurance is sexy. But maybe if being incredibly powerful and important makes it sexy, then therefore it is. But there's so much opportunity in the insurance domain, in this growing ecosystem now, like with MGAs, all those types of things happening more and more, is to solve for the high volume, high value, not menial, not low value. I hate when people say low value. It's not low value, it's just not complicated. The low complexity, high volume things that need to happen across the entire insurance ecosystem. There's so much opportunity right for automation that frees up the people for the people to be where the people either need to be to make the decision, say, for example, underwriting, serve them up all the data, analyze, vetted, validated, modeled, maybe give them a few ranges of how they should think about pricing this thing and some, options on deductibles and things like that. But the human being, at least in commercial lines, is still going to decide. And move away from all the, data gathering and pivot tables that say, like many underwriters may still have to do. So I think that's a powerful thing that I think just the industry as a whole is recognizing more and more, is solving for the back office is one of the most critical, essential things that we can do to strengthen our industry as our industry matures and moves out. We have this continuous crisis of hundreds of thousands of us that are reaching retirement eligible age. And I don't think actually they're all like retiring, because at least in the United States, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics does their annual type of who's choosing to continue to work. And the number of people over 60, over 65, over 70, over 75, it's going up.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
People are, yeah. And I think there's more, we're living longer and healthier, yay. Which also means we may need more money to live well. But I think it's also, and I think to the point you made earlier, Jen, about the whole aspect with COVID, is this ability to work remotely or in a hybrid fashion. New roles emerge, new ways to do traditional historical insurance work emerge. And so now there's this whole other career ecosystem that people who want to kind of find their career 2.0, career 3.0 can do. But I'm just seeing a lot of women are really jumping in to be solving, and not to say that men aren't either, but I'm seeing more and more women who are jumping in and starting things up. For any of us, wherever we are in our journey, there's an element of reflecting, kind of looking over our shoulder and saying, what are the actions that anyone took that helped enable my journey, kind of the hand up, not the hand out, that enabled my journey, and or what made it incredibly more painful than it should be. And that becomes, I feel like that's our shared obligation to each other. If I can either, somebody, and again, I can speak of so many people who were so instrumental in my career thus far, and I've learned from them. And so that was so impactful. Can I do that for someone? Or if someone reaches out to me and says, can I get a little bit of your time? I have a question about kind of the journey you've taken and what have you learned along the way? Because I'm no means an expert. I just have scars and bruises. I'm like, that will always be a priority, that I will just do everything I can to make time to have those conversations, because somebody either did it for me and it made all the difference, or they didn't, or I didn't think to ask, in all fairness, trying to be self-sufficient and figuring it out on my own. I realized in hindsight, wow, that didn't have to be that hard. There were people out there willing to help. And I learned this when I left Usher last year, and I was kind of going back out to market, and I learned watching several other women that were kind of putting on the green circle. And I learned about how to tell my story, and then ask for what I need. Ask my community, here's how you can help me, and being specific about how people could help me, be really, and when I was specific, my tribe rallied. They were amazing. All I needed to do was ask, which is not necessarily something that women are really great at doing. So we have to, I think, role model it by doing it, encourage others, and try to create the availability to answer when someone does come along.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think our worst trait is that we think we can do it all. We think we are all superheroes, but we don't have to, be superheroes that are drowning in a million things that we can't, get help and then everyone does better. We give opportunities to women around us, and we excel more at what we can take on, rather than doing half work on many, many things because we've decided that we could say, yes, yes, I'll take that. So,
Yeah. Well, or like asking for help is a sign of weakness.
yeah.
I mean, I think in this world where we're still trying to kind of navigate and prove ourselves, or, you know, or prove ourselves to ourselves or to others or both, I think there's a piece of it too. And learning, you know, asking for help. Again, if you can be clear about what you're looking for, and you direct it to the right people, you know, that to me, that's like a sign of confidence.
Yeah.
But I only say this, you know, this many years into my life. I might not have said that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all a journey. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's all a journey, and that's part of why we have the podcast, right? So we can get that message out and help lift, and even for ourselves. It's just such a reminder. Like even when you said you're almost battling yourself sometimes, and then it's not even that, like even for me, I don't even think I have any of that other. It's me. I'm the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's, kind of like the why not?
Yeah.
You know, one of my mentors, Deb Smallwood, who actually founded Strategy Meets Action, you know, she has this great expression, why not me?
Yeah.
And that was something she became a CIO way before women were becoming CIOs, and there's still not enough of them, but in the insurance industry. And a big part of it was she knew that was her aspiration, and she had to really kind of, you know, the Sharon Moonstruck, you know, snap out of it. She had to like grab herself by the shoulders and say, why not me?
Yeah.
I'm thinking all the reasons why it isn't, but you know, all the obstacles, as opposed to, okay, you know, call it an obstacle, call it a challenge, but still, why not me? Why? I know I'm more than qualified and capable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you feel that kind of energy when you were at, so tell us a little bit about I'll circle back, but the Alta World Women in Insurance Tech Conference. Did you feel that kind of energy? Because I mean, if people are going to that conference, they're putting themselves in, and they're giving, you know, they must be thinking about their next steps, or at least looking for advancement. But did you feel that energy of women just being like, why not? Why not me? Let's do this.
Absolutely. And this is a forum that I've been part of since it started. It started back in 2020 when we were all virtual. And it was a really smart, savvy, I think it was 2 or 3 people at the time that started this forum. Of course, it was online. And I remember, so, you know, I'm in a panel and, you know, talking and meeting all these women all on Zoom. And I think you can appreciate that. So the event ends, because maybe it wasn't even a full day, because it was the first shot. I think they were testing the marketplace in terms of interest. And I'm not sure, probably 40 of us stayed on the Zoom call for like another hour or 2.
Oh, nice.
We had just met virtually, in the, it was December, I think it was December of 2020. We just met, and there was sort of like this bonding, because we were, innately, we were all there because there was something about this topic that intrigued us as women in insurance and women in technology, women in insurance technology, that intrigued us. And so it was just such a different vibe. It was virtual again in 2021, and then we went in person in 22. And I've been part of it now. I'm a part of the planning board for it. And in fact, a year ago, when we were getting ready for the event in 2023, Deb Smallwood, I was talking to her, she by that point had retired. She's now writing a book and doing all this really cool stuff, her kind of next adventure. And I said, I really want you to be on my panel. And she's like, oh my gosh, another insurance technology conference. And I said, Deb, I promise you, that's not what this is.
Yeah.
This is a very different forum where I was like, just like, trust me. Like, and if nothing else, you're retired. What else are you doing? Like, please come. And she came, with eyes wide open, and she said, oh my goodness, all of a sudden there's just this connection, the relationships, the new friendships. And it just keeps growing, because unlike most technology conferences, which are understandably, it's about, selling and all those types of things, this is really a forum that is really for anyone who's passionate on this topic, for those who want to share their journeys and what they're learning along the way, those who want to hear it, and those who want to connect, and create this network. So like a year ago, before ITC, one of the women that's part of this community about 20 of us rented an Airbnb in Zion and spent like 5 days together doing a lot of like supportive coaching, reflecting, meditating, and also having lots of fun and eating out and enjoying the beautiful weather, so coming together. So that's really what this has become. Is it's an event like no other, because yes, do we need to have sponsors because there are expenses involved? Absolutely. Of course we do. But what my former employer and my current one, the pitch I made, I said, when I think we need to sponsor this, I said, this is not about going to sell. This is about showing that this is a priority for us, that we want to be in the room and part of these conversations. We want our brand credibly and positively aligned to this really critical topic to our industry. And we want to be part of this conversation both before, during, and after the event. So every year the event keeps growing in terms of its agenda, its shapes and sizes. But every time, if you don't leave with 20 new meaningful connections of people that you could tap on the shoulder a year from now at a moment's notice if you needed help, I'm kind of like, then you might not have been in the room. Because it is, and so now like we have there's a whole large group of us. We have a WhatsApp group getting ready for ITC every time we have a new event. And so there's a whole bunch of us. And so we're giving each other guidance, we're making introductions, it's just this community that has formed that just keeps showing up again everywhere, every time there's an event. Yeah. But it always comes back to this Alta World event is kind of we all come home to this event. And then we kind of go back, but then we come back, and then we come back. We just keep coming back to center at this forum.
Well, I feel like we could honestly have done 2 sessions here or 2 episodes here, because there's so much we didn't touch on that I'd still love to chat with you about. But I know we're at the end of our time, and Tanya's going to kill us, so she has to edit this down, and we're just.
No, she'll be good, but we'll definitely come back with a part 2.
That'd be fun.
Totally talk to you for hours about all this stuff, so that's great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. No, I'm so thrilled. I love having these conversations and learning. It's such a learning journey. And I say, like, I was talking to somebody the other day, every day, if I don't learn something new, then I stop paying attention.
Yeah.
Because everything is changing, and there's still, I don't know, do I understand 10% of the industry? Probably. Didn't say that out loud, but just because it's so vast and ever evolving and global.
Yeah. And meeting new people too. Like, it's been a pleasure meeting you online, and it's so nice that there is a podcast world now, or even that technology can extend it where you can meet so many more people in the in the industry you're in, but in different countries across the different time zones. And it's been wonderful following along, like seeing all the different conferences you're going to and the messages you're putting out there. So we'll link your LinkedIn page below on this episode as well. And yeah, it was so nice having you on today. And like I said, we could probably talk to you for hours, but.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I love this. This is a battery recharging moment for me, so I really appreciate it.